and welcome back after a week off. Quite honestly, I was going around the country doing loads of coaching and had no time to record it, but we are back and welcome to Touch Talks. This podcast, we're diving into the heart of the touch rugby community, exploring the stories, the skills and the people that made the sport way more than just a game. I'm Dom, and this week we are joined by an integral part of the Irish touch scene for many, many years. A fierce competitor. I'd almost say like a rival for the last few years, but actually now probably a bit more friendship than rival. John Ennis, who not only was a really critical person in driving the Ireland Men's Open team for a huge amount of time, but also Ireland Touch. So absolutely blessed for you to come and give up your time, John, and chat about things, all things Ireland Touch, your perception, your business, your life, everything really. So thanks so much for coming on. How are you?
Pleasure to be here, Dom. I'm doing good. I like how you said rival turned to friendship as well.
Yeah.
Good description of where you're at.
No, I feel that's a blessing in disguise over a few years of being on the other side of to not only at club but at international level going against each other, and now just sharing more Guinness than the moments on the pitch, which isn't the worst thing.
Yeah, fair. No, definitely, it was a rivalry that turned to friendship, and I would even say that there existed something before the rivalry where you guys pretty much disregarded us as anything really, like, or you wouldn't have seen us as, worthy rivals. We were just kind of another team in the international circuit that weren't up to like giving you a good game. And I think that would have been back like 2016, 2017-ish, if you remember.
Yeah, when did you start playing for the Ireland Men's Open? Because was it about 8 years ago, 9 years ago?
2015. I started playing touch in 2014 entirely by accident. I had just finished my Gaelic football career, retired, done with sport, ready to just hit the gym, and a pub that I owned here in Dublin ran a competition for sponsorship. And the team that won the competition was a touch team, a touch rugby team, and we got them jerseys and stuff, and they invited us down to present them. And it just so happened I arrived down in my gym gear, and they were like, "Oh, well, you got to play," and I was like, "I simply don't know how to play at all, and don't want to play." But they said, "Come on, give it a lash," and yeah, I think I discovered scooping on day one, and I was like, "Okay, well, we can run fast, and we'll see where we go." It was a mixed tournament because I had seen tag. Everybody had seen tag, before touch. But that was it. Just started it, loved it. There was a really good gang. We had an Australian girl called Claire Camarelli, and she was really good at explaining the technical aspect and all that, and I loved that. But I never played rugby before. I didn't play rugby in school. Never played for a club. First rugby ball I touched was pretty much that day on the touch pitch, and that was it. And as you know, with most touch journeys, you start playing, and a year later, you find yourself in an international team because we seem to do the social aspect really well. Well, in Ireland anyway. And then there's a big gulf or gap, and then there's the international setup. So you can make a quick transition from social player to international squad member. I'm sure that's the same for you guys.
Absolutely. I think that's weirdly quite unique around touch as well. I don't know if other amateur sports have got it where all of a sudden you turn up and it is social, it's men and women playing together, it's beers or, just socializing, hanging out. And all of a sudden someone goes, "You've got a bit of potential here. Do you want to come and play this?" And all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, I'm representing internationally, whatever it might be." And it's kind of like, okay, I feel like it's a weirdly good carrot to have dangle over people in a way to negotiate them coming and playing.
I think it's indicative of where we're at as a sport, though, because we're a niche sport, really, if you think about it. Like, it's a unique offset of rugby. There's not a whole lot of players. I know myself, certainly. I I played basketball to a relatively high level. I made a underage development team, a national team, but I was nowhere near good enough to play international level. And I don't think there's any other sport that I would have got a crack at playing internationally if it hadn't been for touch. So where it's obviously great and cool, and like, wow, you get to wear your country's jersey, but I think it very much describes the issue we have. It's like social or elite, and that whole other area that makes up every other sport between Sunday league and Premier League, or club rugby and international rugby. We're missing that. We don't have it. So I know you're doing great work in England trying to build that out, but it's definitely where the sport needs to go. We need to fill out that gap on the ladder.
Feel that. And for those listening who don't know, John was very much involved in Ireland Touch in terms of I guess, the administration, sort of the growth, driving the organisation through. So dead keen to hear your perception of, I guess, how it has changed, if it's changed in the last, 10 years or so that you've been playing. And is it getting there, or is it still facing challenges?
I guess when I started playing touch, or got asked to trial for Ireland and made like a men's open panel, what struck me most was that I'd come from a club Gaelic football background, and our club Gaelic football was pretty well run. Like, it was a very much an elite setup in terms of mindset and training and administration and organization. And I found that lacking in touch. And I was quite surprised, because I was like, well, we're an international team, but I mean, sometimes there's like 8 people are training, or like we're training in a facility that's like a park or something, and it just, the two things didn't marry for me. There was a disconnect. Like, we're international in name, but not in how we do things. So the first thing I wanted to do when I became involved with the Men's Open was make it an elite setup, or at least aim to make an elite setup, because I felt at the time that it certainly wasn't. And I made the team for Jersey. Do you remember the Jersey Europeans? Did you play that?
I did indeed. Yeah, that was good fun. Nice weather. Good
Yeah,
tour.
lovely pitches, to be fair. But I smashed my shoulder and my collarbone 2 weeks before the tournament. I suppose, since this is a safe space and we're being open and honest, I can tell you how I did it. It was a breakaway try, and I dived over the try line and smashed up everything. So
Oh, that's a tough celebration afterwards.
very embarrassing, and I missed out on the Euros because of that. But I went to the Euros and I watched us come seventh or eighth, I think. And then the following year there was a permit tournament in Edinburgh, and a lot of the guys in the team were kind of wary of it and didn't want to go to the tournament. They felt like, we wouldn't compete well, and I was like, it was my first shot at it, so I was like, no, no, we're going, like, we're gonna do this, and we'll get sponsorship, we'll get a team, and we did all that, and we went there and lost every game, and I was like, right, okay, so this is where we're at. It was my first time experiencing the competition, because you guys had 4 teams, I believe. Wales had one, Scotland had two, then there was us and France. And yeah, we lost every game. And I remember coming home from that tournament and I was like, okay, I'm either quitting or I'm never letting that happen again, because that was just humiliating and embarrassing. And, I didn't know where we were at, but that tournament showed me where we were at. So when we came back from that, I really started to put effort and time and energy into recruiting. I didn't know a whole lot about touch, still don't, to be fair, but I had to find out the people who did, and there wasn't a whole lot of them in Ireland. So we had to import a lot of talent, import the coaching, study a lot of stuff online, study what you guys were doing, watching how you guys played, using the videos to understand body positions and settling patterns and this, that, and the other. And then we got a gang of about 20 of us together. There was still some of the old guard from Jersey, and there was a lot of new guys. And then we went to Nottingham, and to be fair, we were unlucky to miss out on the final. We played Wales on the last day, and we lost to them. They went on to the final. If we had won that game, we would have been in the final against you and all the rest. But whatever. Came home without a medal, came fourth, but definitely a big step up. And then from then on, oh yeah, so the next year was the World Cup. So then the full focus was on that. A lot of the old guard had left at this stage. A lot of new guys, a lot of young, fit, athletic guys, and we built from there. Yeah. So then the World Cup was a bit of a gift and a curse. We probably underperformed, but again, huge learnings, and you could see that the squad was developing all the while. And we came back from that with a fire in our belly, for sure. And I think probably at this stage, from your perspective or from England's perspective, you guys were still looking at us as a bit of a joke, or a bit like not real competition for you guys at the Euros. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think trying to hammer my mind back, and I was trying to think at what point did that change, because it did change.
I just didn't know when.
And and I think it was Autumn Internationals
What?
was the first time I thought, oh, holy shit, this is like, because I actually think in reflection, you had the momentum for the majority of the game, you were up, and that was the first year I was like, wow, this is a huge change. Like that post COVID or whatever you did from 2018, 2019 to then was. I'd be really interested to hear what you actually did, because that was a massive, massive shift.
Yeah. So the plan was very simple. The plan was to get. So in Ireland, we don't have a huge amount of touch players, and we don't have a huge amount of men in their 20s playing touch to a high level. You guys have a much bigger base and a much uh, better funnel. So it's quite simple. We sat down, maybe four or five of us, and we said, look, we think we can win a gold. But in order to do so, we have to get 20 guys who will commit for the next 3 to 4 years, and we just have to work non-stop every day with one goal in mind. And we did that. We went to, I don't know if you remember it, I don't know if you played it. There was a perma competition in Elche.
Yes, I wasn't there, but no, it happened. Yeah.
2019, we beat England in a drop off in the semi final and then lost in the final to France. But before that tournament, we had brought in Thomas Devereaux, we brought in Paul Montero, and obviously we had Christopher Johnson, who was with us at the World Cup. Jonna was coach of East Roosters at the time. So some of our lads were planning to go to Australia, and that that dovetails perfect with sending some guys over there to get some good coaching, good experience, and then be ready for the Euros in 2020. The permit, again, if you were to look at it as a KPI, it showed the trajectory going in the right direction. Silver medal, should have beaten France in the final, but we had a very young team, etc. But everything was going in the right direction. And then COVID hit January, or everyone knows, March 2020. And we were just like, oh my God, like our plan is now in ribbons. So instead of giving up, what we did was we actually doubled down, and we used it as, we said, right, there's a gap of this much between us and England Men's Open. It doesn't look like there's going to be any Euros now for 2 3 years. So we're going to use these 2 or 3 years to just purely focus on narrowing that gap. And that's what we did. We created we've no competition here, right? We've nobody to play. So Ireland Men's Open, there's no other team in the country that can play against Ireland Men's Open and give them a game. So we created two teams. We built a squad of 25, 28. We split it in two. It was almost like State of Origin. We just smashed each other for months on months on months. We got access to the Sport Ireland campus. Did you play there? The indoor
Yeah,
dome?
yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and the outdoor pitches. And we picked two teams, and every Sunday was like a game. It might as well have been a league, except you were playing the same team over and over and over. And you know, iron sharpens iron, and in the game we would just kill each other. Like, I mean, no holds barred. Like, friendships almost fell out because of it. Some referees stopped coming because of the fierceness of the competition. But that's where we got our gains. That's where we got the gains that you would have noticed in the AIS, the Autumn International, and then the following Euros, which was Nottingham. That's where it came
Yeah,
from.
that's so good to hear, because that thing I always find really interesting, because surely that exists in any sport. You get to the top and you're in the best team and you go, who do you play? Like, you've just got yourselves to play. But actually splitting and going two teams, you do the same with the coaching. Like, this is two separate camps, and actually we're just knocking the hell out of each other to really dig deep into weaknesses, who's got strengths, and then build it around. Because my perception as well is, particularly from Autumns, I mean, always thought Your fast team, good mates. But before autumns, it did seem a little bit scattered. But from autumns onwards, you just think, wow, this is a really, really close group and a fast and an educated group, which is dangerous because you go, right, you're playing some smart touch quickly and you've got multiple threats. It's a difficult thing to defend against, right? Which is amazing because COVID was such an interesting time. I think we probably didn't have that opportunity, and I'm just trying to think back to how we even did the training. We did loads of stuff online, but not to the same. It wasn't to the same driving factor of like that's what we're coming in for. We're going to double down. That just didn't really exist. I think a few people kind of took a bit of a break.
Mm.
Um, the only other thing I remember is in that game that we played was the first time we used Inferno balls. And I remember, I think it was a Meeks was just subbing off and went to throw it to the wing and just threw it into the clubhouse. And we're like, whoa, here we go. Set the tone a little bit. And then you were just hammered and hammered and hammered. And yeah, I think it was only one in it at the end. But yeah, that was
Yeah, it was your team.
close. Yeah.
You remember that? I think it was an intercept. But it's to go back to that squad v squad thing. I read the Clive Woodward book, and he was asked like, what won the World Cup for you guys? And he said what won the World Cup for England was the 20 lads that didn't play. And he went on to elaborate and explain that the guys on the pitch were able to perform as well and were as well prepared as they were because of the guys that didn't play, because of the guys that they were training against week in and week out, who put them in a situation where almost the toughest game they had played was in training 3 weeks ago, not the game at the World Cup under the lights. And it's that mentality. It happens a lot in boxing. I have a bit of a boxing background, and it happens a lot in boxing. Is that like you put yourself in the darkest, most challenging situations you can in training, so that when that darkness inevitably comes, and it will come in a game, you're very familiar with it. And we knew, like we had spent 3 or 4 years of you guys kicking the shit out of us, physically, just beating us to every rock, just getting better purchase on your defensive touches, etc. So we had to replicate that in training for 2 years or 3 years, and we tried to do that. So when it came to the match, suddenly, when you guys are playing well and doing what you do, you don't see that shock in our eyes. We're not shocked anymore. It's more like a smile, and we're saying, "Bring it on." We're familiar with this, and I think you'll agree. We always had the Irish teams always have intensity, and they always have pride in their jersey, and they'll always go out and try to fight you. But what you guys had over us over the years is you had the technical advantage, you had the skills advantage, and you had the touch IQ advantage, right? So those were the three areas that I tried to attack by bringing in people. So we brought in coaches. For Autumn Internationals, we brought in Garrett Ravel. We had Thomas Devereux. We had Christopher Johnson operating from Australia and sending us and loads of videos. There's so much video. If we weren't, honestly, Don, if we weren't playing touch during that period, we were analyzing touch. It just became like an obsession with. But during this podcast, I wanted to be open and honest, and our focus was wrong. So our focus was on a gold medal, right? That was like the key objective, key goal every day: gold medal, gold medal. But it shouldn't have been. The focus should have been on improving ourselves and making ourselves better consistently and every day, and making the boat go faster. And then if the gold medal comes at the end of that, brilliant. But probably me personally, I became too obsessed with this gold medal idea, and I think, where are we now? So all in internationals, the next Euros was in Nottingham.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah, and everything was setting up nicely. We beat every team convincingly. We beat France, hammered France for the first time. Like usually it was a tight game, but that actually the semi with France went to drop off, I believe. But before that, we felt super comfortable. But then in the final, it's like this gold medal, gold medal, gold medal. This idea envelops your entire mindset, and the game suddenly becomes like a second thought or an afterthought, because all you're thinking about is the result. And what I've learned in business and life and touch and everything, it's not the result. The results happen by you repeating and staying disciplined and going through the process over and over, doing the right things consistently for a long period of time. The result isn't in your hands, right? The, the gold medal is not up to me, or it's not up to the coaches, it's not up to the players. It's up to many variable and uncontrollable dynamic factors. The only thing you can control is every day making the right choices for your teammates, for yourself, and doing the best you can. And year one, so I almost threw my silver medal in the bin after the Nottingham final in 22,
22, yeah.
22. You guys smashed us in the final. Going into the final, I was thinking it's going to be a tight game. They might take us by one. We might take them by one. I'm so pumped. I could go to drop off, all these things. And it was 14-3. 14-3. So it was like the complete opposite of all my permutations and visualizations and everything. So I almost threw my silver medal in the bin when the lads stopped me. And I was just a wreck for weeks and weeks after, because I've just talked you through all of the effort and time and energy we put into it. And then to get smashed was like, at the time, I was like, well, that just totally devalues everything you've done, right? But what I then learned after is it didn't devalue anything. The results didn't define the relationships we'd made, the laughs
Right.
we'd had, the work we put in, the results we had in the tournament, the times we looked like we were gold medalists in the tournament, the fun on the pitch, the smashing heads with you, smashing heads with other lads, shaking hands after. All of that is the result, not the gold medal. And I know that's easy to say as a silver medalist. Like you say, of course you're saying that because you didn't win it. But I genuinely believe that, because when we went to Vichy, we came second to Vichy. That silver medal from Vichy is probably the most prized possession I have in my life, because not because of the medal or the result or anything. It was the last time I played men's. I knew walking off that pitch I would never play men's again. But I smiled. We got beaten in the final convincingly by you guys, but I smiled the whole time. I was happy. I was looking around. It was all my brothers around with me, that we everything we'd done over the last few years, and I just felt great. Like, I felt happy with everything I'd done. So what? We came up short. Uh, I said to the lads at the time, and I still believe this: if you told me I had to go back and do it all over again and get the same result in Vichy, no problem. I'd do it in the morning. I would jump at the chance to go through that whole process again, because it was absolutely amazing. And that one in particular, we brought in Zach Bazunas, as the viewers will know, but Buzz, as we all know. And Buzz was the head coach, and he was an amazing head coach. We all know how good a player he is, but he absolutely shocked me and stunned me at how good of a coach he was, and he led from the front. He's one of these guys, as you know, Don. He knows exactly what he wants. He has a vision of what he wants to happen, and he doesn't question himself. He doesn't need too much discussion. Yes, he will take his opinions from others, like he values feedback, but he knows what he wants, and he'll get you to share that vision and to execute it and to operate it. And I think we haven't talked at all about like the NTSs and stuff, but I think you saw like Wesley at the NTS, or even, yeah, well, the Wesleys at the NTS, like that was all Buzz. Like our execution, our speed down the pitch, our are not accepting substandard roll balls, are not accepting substandard anything, and calling each other out, but also calling each other out with a hander on the shoulder. Like, I come off the pitch thinking, "Wow, I just set up a try," but Buzz is calling me to the back of the box, and he's saying, "Do you think you didn't? Do you think you were a bit soft in that when you were planting that ball? Did you bend your back enough? Did you clear the ruck?" And I'm like, oh, I was celebrating, whereas Buzz is thinking next set.
Yeah.
What do you think
What's
you're doing? So I went on. I what's the word there? Like I just kind of let everything flow out of me there. But I wanted you to understand the process up to Vichy and the NTSs again brought in that competition that we don't have. We don't have a club scene here. Sorry, that's a bit disrespectful. We have a club scene here. We don't have an elite. We don't have more than one or two elite level men's clubs in Ireland. So again, it's this idea of two teams sharpening each other rather than because in England, like you split your men's open very well, like between Scorps, between Galaxy, between NQ, between Wigan, like all these teams get to play against each other and develop one another, right?
it is, yeah. It's such a listening to that. There's so many things I just want to dive into because you go standards process, like it's not the result. Because weirdly, I'm sitting here after World Cup going exactly the same as you. Like I wouldn't change. Obviously, obviously you could sit here and go, of course I change results. Like I'd love to do that. You'd love to win everything, but in reality, you can't go back and change that. And in a weird way, I really value the lessons that I've learned, the coaches that I've had, the teammates that I've made. Even from a competition point of view, I've loved getting to know you, to know the Irish boys. Same thing with the Scottish boys and the Welsh boys and the French. You chat to like Remy and Yannick, and there's just so many people that you get to meet along the way who are all sacrificing a lot, all on a journey, all driven to do something special and change where their team sits in the running order and the rank. And it is such a special community. And you're right. I feel your last comment there. We are so blessed because the NTS, like there is competition. Like you said, there's multiple winners of different comps, not only without the season, but season to season. People move, people change, people go to study, people move city. It is cool. It's really competitive. And it was a blessing to come over with Scorps over to Dublin. I think was it last year, or the year before. It's honestly one of the favourite weekends
Yeah,
playing some of the clubs. But like you said, there is still a big disparity, I think, and that was a couple of years ago, so that's potentially unfair to say now. But you've got a good group of juniors and now some fantastic knowledge within the team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 4 years, 8 years, because if you can keep that group together growing, that could change the game quite dramatically and build on the success that from all the work that you put in as a group.
yeah. Well, I would probably in a while we'll come to like the state of Ireland touch and where I think the future of it is. I'm slightly I'm slightly not as optimistic or enthusiastic about the future, but that can change. Like I'm just kind of looking at things at the moment. But I had a question for you actually because so we've become good mates out of touch, and I think so early on in like when I mentioned the permit and the World Cup. To be fair, did we have we had a challenge game in Manchester at one stage? I think,
Yes.
yeah, I think you might agree. You saw signs of a change there because I think the score of the first game was like 8-4 or something, so it wasn't a thrashing.
Yeah.
But some people and like I don't know about you, right? But I I can be fairly friendly with a guy, go onto a pitch and like want to murder him, like within reason. And as soon as the game is over, I can just snap back to friendship. Let's get a pint, whatever it is. There's guys on the Irish team over the years that would like have seen England as the enemy and would need that like fire, would use that as a fire for the game. That like they're not our friends, and I think like sometimes even people would maybe look at me a little differently for being friendly with some of you guys because it's like that's the enemy. How can you be friends with the person you're? But for me, I can switch it on and off, and I think you too.
I
Yeah,
can.
to be fair,
Yeah.
to be fair on the picture, also a nice guy on the pitch, in my opinion.
That's where I need to improve. We were looking at it. I think you touched generally right. Obviously, European, it's changed massively because I think you're right. Take back to 2016. This could be totally unfair and arrogant, but I do feel like we were quite dominant as a group in that
Yeah,
tournament, and it's the last few years, it's way more competitive,
Mm.
and on your day, people can beat each other. Like we got knocked off by France. We've had real close games. Like the Scottish boys can turn up. We've had close. It is close.
Mm.
So the exciting thing is, and again, like I would always stay mates with everyone. I think life's bigger than sport for me. I love competing. I love getting better. I love winning, but I wouldn't do that at the detriment of being a knobhead and people viewing me as someone they don't want to associate with. I'd much rather, I don't know, we all work together, because for me the bigger game is going the Aussies and the Kiwis, the Cookies. That for me is the next exciting group where you go, how do we get there, and take the same approach? There's a gap. How do you close the gap? And actually, now the nice thing I think is it's not in technical, it's not in tactical. I think it's in regularity of intensity of games, because
Mm.
we're having the same conversations going. We need to mimic playing against an Australia,
Mm.
ideally every single week. So you're used to being in close games. You're used to playing at this speed, and those are conversations which have happened for the last 2-3 years. And I think the more that we all have that competition together, the more we'll genuinely get there. But that for me, that doesn't come at like pulling it back around to your point. I can look at them and go, all right, I can use that as fire. But like for example, Buzz just like would send messages to try and like wind you up and get you to nibble on things on Instagram because you're going to go play against them. And with Buzz, you're like, oh, I'll just kill him with kindness. And you go, oh, you're so good. You're such a good player, and he hates it. So it's kind of like reverse
Um,
psychology. But when you play against him, you're like, I don't care who you are. I'm going to give my absolute. You're going to get my best, and we're going to try and beat you. But after the game, same thing. I'll go and have a drink. I'll have a drink with you. I'll chat about it. I'll be honest. I'll reflect, and I love that. I absolutely love that with sport. But the flip and the fire is definitely something where maybe that's come a little bit more with age potentially. I think when I was younger, I was way more obsessive with winning, and actually, the longer I was in that group, I think the more I valued the process
mm.
and the people. And not that winning's always been a focus, it's a driving point, but for me it's assumed. Like, you're playing sport, of course you're trying to, like, in that group, it shouldn't be anything other than winning.
Yeah.
But the focus can't be on that. The focus has to be on, people need to love training, people need to rip into each other but then be mates afterwards. We need to really value the competition, respect people who are also working hard. For me, that's as important. But you're right, it is also, yeah. I'm trying to think back to, have I ever gone into a game going, oh, I can't stand these guys, like let's get after them.
Mm.
um and honestly, I don't think I have, if I'm being honest. I think I really try and focus on other aspects.
Yeah, and I think what you said there, that like just competing and winning is enough motivation for you. You know, I think was it Tom Brady said that like had to he didn't want to be friends with anybody he was playing against. He had to convince himself that he hated, the guys he was going up against, because that was his juice.
Mm.
I didn't have to do that, but I love when I have a point to prove, or like when people say you can't do something. So I guess like when we came back from Permit after losing every game, like I think a lot of people, I said, "Oh, I want to try and win a gold medal," and a lot of people kind of laughed at that and said, "You're like, we're going to actually dissolve the men's and make a mixed team because you're not good enough to compete in men's." So that was kind of fuel for my fire. And
Yeah.
I also think like probably a respect thing comes into it as well, because the England team, from what I could see back in the day, wouldn't have respected us as competition. Now you may very well have respected us as individuals and all the rest, but when you saw like Ireland versus England on the fixture sheet, you were thinking 10-0, 12-2, whatever, and you probably would have been right at that time. But what I noticed the change was when we got your respect after autumn. Suddenly, like, you guys wanted to come over to Ireland to play us, or you wanted us to come over to England to play you guys, which I think we did, right? We've done it a couple
Yeah.
of times, anyway, through various channels or whatever, and I think we earned your respect based on our performances and results from 2019 on, which then laid the foundation for the friendships that exist now. Because you guys have been over here, some of you stayed in our houses. You've been to my restaurants. We've done the same thing over in London, and so it's worked out great. I'm glad that we felt we had a point to prove against you guys, because it's worked out great for everyone.
even coming over and hanging out the Lucky Tortoise, oh mate, I wouldn't change that for anything. And same thing, like you said, it's international because we did stuff. I think we've come twice, if not three times, as England. We've obviously come over as Scorps. You came over, like you said, we did I think it was in Manchester. We had a scrimmage before the World Cup in 2019, which was cool. I'm pretty sure I broke my wrist in that game as well, which was slightly upsetting. But apart from that, that's a whole other story. But
What were your
yeah,
thoughts on the NTS? Because do you remember in 21 there was like an Irish pod on the London Galaxy team? Do you remember those tournaments? And
yeah,
then
I do. That's where Dan Roberts tackled someone in a game.
yeah,
Do you remember that?
yeah, that was brilliant. That was brilliant. And Will ripped the ball to you on the wing. It was like that play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And someone just stood there like he's literally just wrapped my ankles up. Great tackle.
Yeah.
Wrong sport.
Because
Um,
there's a running thing, and I think it's still continuing because of Stevie Troy, is that myself, Troy, Jimmy, and Philo, until last year, were undefeated in NTS. So we played like 32 NTS games or something, and we'd won 32 games until last year when you guys beat us in the final. Scorps beat Wesley. So I got
uh,
my first loss. But Stevie, from if I'm correct, has still continued on that unbeaten NTS record, which was quite impressive, really, like to play that many games. And
and not lose. Yeah, that's actually
yeah,
yeah. When you put it like that, because he also set up I think because you were up by 3 or 4 in that game, and I remember that being one of the toughest. Like lungs gone, legs gone, and Stevie picked up and basically fell over and managed to like flick the ball away
yeah.
into like hole one.
Mm.
But he's a great dude. If he's not lost a game in NTS, I feel like he should stop playing. I feel like it's
I,
gonna
I
like
got dragged into the last NTS. I was like, I'm done. I'm happy. Keep my own. But nah, I'm only joking. It was
mate. We got a good Irish contingent now at Scorps because Jimmy's come over as
yeah.
well, who is a phenomenal. He is playing so well, and obviously Stephen's been there for a bit. Connor's also over there, and you're like, yeah, this is cool. This is really really cool.
I hold the opinion. So in Vichy, Jimmy was operating at the highest level I'd ever seen him, and I think across the board he was like our best player. He was the best player I'd seen at the tournament until that day, and then when his Achilles snapped and it was like a gunshot on the pitch. By the way, I just thought to myself, what a cruel twist of fate. If we brought Jimmy into that final playing the way he was playing, like look, there's ifs and buts with every tournament, but I really feel like that was a killer blow because he was moving so well, and it was it was so tough.
He is, and also that as well speaks volumes around like I guess him and the approach because coming back from an Achilles is tough. It's tough to get back to speed, but then you watch him say in the final of NTS last year where it was Scorps versus Nottingham, I think,
Mm.
and Nottingham have obviously got Lupton, who is, in my view, like a phenomenal player as well. And not just it's not 1-on-1, but you go, Jimmy was just so good in that game and has got back to a level which I know you can argue if he's the same, better, almost as where he was at. But I remember chatting to I can't remember if it was yourself or Stephen going like Jimmy's just killing this, like early days in Vichy. And then so upset because he's such a nice guy as well. You're like, that's just so unfair on him that happens. And that's a key member because a person like that can swing a game. I don't know. He's good for what 2, 3, 4 scores a game, and then obviously that swings, that puts pressure, momentum, and like you said, if buts maybes. But
Like
yeah, it's
Jimmy,
tough.
that tournament, like Jimmy and Sean Balance, when you had both of them operating at such a high level, and if they're in different pods, like it gives you guys or whoever we're playing against so much to think about. You have so many problems to solve with those two on the pitch operating at a high level. To be fair to Jimmy, when he did his Achilles, in terms of the comeback, I was never worried because he's like the most meticulous guy you'll ever meet. Like if he has to do X, Y, and Z to rehab that Achilles, he'll do X, Y, and Z in abundance. It'll just be like he'll nail everything, and he did, and he's shown that. He's a top guy.
He is. He's quality. Like I said, Shawnee, because Shawnee went out again, and like Philo's out there now. How good was Philo for Bankstown at State Cup as well? So
Unbelievable.
you go, there's a huge court and young because the interesting. I'm keen to get your opinion on this because I was a bit surprised to see so many of the Irish men's boys go to 30s for World Cup. And I was chatting to Stephen about it, going, one more year, surely. And Stephen was like, the training's a lot, the commitment's a lot, which it is. Like, and I think you've spoken about that, for the last 40 minutes. I was like, for one more year, you keep that core. But actually, good result against New Zealand. Really like drew to the cookies, who obviously got over on us, or beat the cookie. And you're like, this is again, which is why I think the next 4 years is so exciting, because if you can hold on to some of the youth that you've got at Wes and in the group, it's a group to build with.
Yeah, I think. Well, to answer your question about the 30s, coming off the pitch in Vichy, like before the tournament, I was like, I'm very old. Like, if this was any other sport, I wouldn't even be considered for an international men's team. But like, I was blessed and lucky that I was able to keep myself in relatively decent shape, and I was able to keep up with them to a certain level that I got to play Vichy. And it was like, well, I guess this goes back to the numbers thing as well. Realistically, I should have been pushed out of that squad. And probably I hung on in that squad a little longer because I was one of the leaders or coaches or organizers. But like, in general, you don't have a 40-year-old playing in a men's team. Like, it's such a rare occurrence, and it's because the younger crowd should push the older guys out. That's just a natural progression of life. But there wasn't a whole lot coming up. So like, I if the base was bigger, I don't think I would have been blessed to be able to stay on that long and play for them. But like, I looked at the World Cup, I looked at the guys, and I said, it, probably even the year before, it was time to hand over to them. Like, they have to find, they had to make their own route and their own path through this. I gave it a really good crack for Nottingham 23 or 22, whatever it was. 23 is 23?
22.
22.
22 Nottingham, 22 Vichy, yeah.
I poured my life into that tournament and the preparation, and we came up short. And I was like, well, look, I gave it a good go. But with Buzz coming back, we all decided we'd give Vichy a crack. And again, I poured everything I had into it, came up short. And I was like, look, I've done everything I can. I think I said it to you on the pitch after when I was having a beer. I was like, I have given everything I possibly could, and this is the result I've got. I'm happy with that. I'm happy to walk away and let the amazing young guys take control of this program, run the program, and to go on and try and win things. So that was my reason for stepping away. And I think when I stepped away, you have the likes of Ryan Root and Ryan Singh, who's just a phenomenal athlete, just like the perfect human being. Connor Murphy, a few others who were like of the same mindset and mentality as me, Stevie Troy. We all probably looked at it and said, it's time for us to move on to something else and let the guys try and do it. And I guess that's why we all I can't really speak on behalf of the other lads, but I definitely know why I walked away. And it's just,
Sure.
I'd done my best. And it was, if I'm being honest with you, Don, the gold medal was the thing I was after, really, deep down. There's no gold medal on offer at a World Cup, right? You can do great, and
Not yet.
you know,
Yeah.
I know you guys had eyes on a silver, but for me, a bronze wasn't probably even a possibility at the World Cup. That that might have been just my kind of negative lens on it, but so I was like, right, I'll go. And then the 30s thing, in hindsight, like the 30s came about because I quit men's, but still had the urge to compete. And 30s was a massive cultural shock for me, and I'm sure the other boys will say the same as well, because it was completely different to what we've been used to and what we built with men's. And in 30s, you have like men who have families and have responsibilities, and they're in an important part of their career, and they've got kids and jobs, and that level of commitment that we would have put in men's wasn't there in 30s. And it was kind of like trying to brute force it, or like to put a square peg to a round hole. And it resulted in quite like a bit of tension and like just a split in terms of what people want and how to do it, and obviously for 30s I was a passenger, whereas with men's I was kind of helping steer the ship. Um,
Yeah.
it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable. It just wasn't what I was used to. So it was like it was tough. It was tough, and very much at the end of it, I was like, I'm definitely done now. Like,
This has secured me.
yeah, it's either
Um,
men's or nothing at that stage.
Means or nothing. But we were saying just before we started recording as well that there's so much that you've taken in the last few years, which you're now taking into life. Because, I don't want to share news if it's not public. But yeah, obviously opening up another restaurant in Dublin is cool, and must be a whole new set of challenges. But I don't know, maybe there's learnings from the process and loving and short term goals, not focusing on the outcome, etc., etc.
Yeah,
Because well, also every time we've come over to Dublin, either for touch or for stag do's or for, I don't know, we always have a good time, and a lot of that is because of you. So it's kind of like where to go, what to eat, where to go out partying, and maybe there's a big crossover because you're saying that's now a bit of a focus in your life.
100%. Business wise, I guess I look at business the same way I look at sport. And I've been involved in coaching sports since I've been 15. So I used to coach under 10s basketball when I was 15. And I was coaching Gaelic. I've been coaching boxing pretty much the whole way through my life at various stages in and out of it, various levels. And I've been involved in business all my life, and they're the same. There's no difference between sport and business because business is people and sport is people, business is teams, and sport is teams. Sport, you have results. The very same in business, you have results. You, as I told you, I was with my accountant this morning. They present management accounts, quarterly accounts. You can even go down to weekly, daily. You can see your profits. You can see your losses. You can see your overall performance on a scale. Is it going up? Is it going down? It's the exact same in sport. You go to a tournament, you get some results from that tournament. It tells you where you're at. And business wise, so I believe in recruiting the right people, if it's a team or if it's a staff, and training them as much as possible, but empowering them as much as possible. So, as you will know from sport, you create a team and you allow most of the responsibility to lie with the staff or with the players on the team. You really have to be honest with yourself of how much influence you have on your business or on your team, and it's a lot less than what you think it is, or it's a lot less than what you might believe it to be based on what you see in the media. Because like we put CEOs on the top pedestal, and it's like he is this company, he's grown, but realistically, like the effect the CEO has on the bottom line of a company is negligible compared to the overall culture, the overall performance of their team. So I very much I would meet with my staff members regularly, like once a week, and we go for coffee outside of work, and we're just talking about non-work related stuff, about their life, maybe about sport, maybe about whatever it is. 15-20 minute coffee, and during that time, they know that if there's something they need to talk about that's maybe affecting their performance at work, they can do so. And I would always look at my staff with a lens of empathy, because if somebody's underperforming, right, and you've hired this person, so you said to yourself, this person is potentially going to do a good job for me, or I see something in this person, right? So there's a reason you hired them, and then they're underperforming, or they're coming in late to work regularly. You need to understand why that person is coming in late to work, or you need to understand why they're lackluster when it comes to the busy times, or they're just not feeling it right. If you allow that person to tell you what's going on and to explain what's happening, the performance will increase instantly, or it will change instantly. Because the old way of thinking when it comes to staff or team or whatever is, you're late, I'm going to dock your pay. If you are late one more time, you're getting a warning, and after 2 warnings, you're getting sacked. Okay, so that's an old way of thinking. The new way of thinking, or the way I think certainly when it comes to this, is why is that employee late? I need to find out. They need to tell me. I need to find out, is it something I'm doing or that I can influence or affect? And usually, just by even trying to get to the bottom of it, their performance will improve overnight because they feel like you care about what it is that's affecting their work. And I also believe that if somebody's unhappy in a job, that they shouldn't be in the job. Life is too short for any of us to be doing a job that doesn't bring us some form of enjoyment or satisfaction. And I'm very open and honest with people that work for me that, like, if they don't enjoy the job, or if they don't enjoy working for me or my style of management or whatever, then we'll try and facilitate. We'll try and rectify the situation. If we can't, then we'll try and facilitate their move to somewhere that they want to be. Because, and by and large, the majority of people who leave my company usually come back at some stage in some shape or form.
I love. I was just thinking the same with sport. Sorry, so I can't remember if I've told you this. I worked under Eddie Jones for 3.5 years,
Yeah.
and the first team meeting I was in, he was just like, people, I need people to love turning up to training. And in my mind, I was going into like the most high pressured, high performance environment that I'd ever been exposed to. And it was just all around. They just need to love it. Just need to. And what you're saying around recruiting people is exactly how I would try to coach a team. Like, if people aren't excited to turn up and buy into me or buy into the group, why? Why are you doing it? There's
Why are we here? Like, it was the same
yeah,
with the touch program. Like, why are we here? Like, if we didn't have a group of 20 sound lads that, like, so, like, I put huge emphasis on building relationships and bonds outside of training. So, like, lads going over to Philos to get a haircut, we'd go over like four deep. Or, three or four of us would go for coffee after training, or we'd all go for food. And because that's the juice. The juice isn't
yeah,
the training.
no.
The juice and the glue that keeps your staff together or your team together happens away from the thing it is you're trying to get them to do, if that makes sense.
Totally agree. And when I get, again, this is so unfair, but you go and, watch other people coach and they're so obsessed. And don't get me wrong, I'm obsessed with the ones and zeros. I love the game, but it's that over everything else. It's like you've completely omitted the fact that when someone turns up, you say hello to them, you ask them how their day is getting on, how are you feeling today? You good? I feel like that makes so much change in value to people being heard, people respecting you, you respecting them, and all of a sudden, same thing. Like, I used to play with someone. As soon as someone was late, they'd be like, "Why are you late? This is not good enough." And again, I was a bit younger, so should have stepped forward, but didn't. I'd always think like, if I was late, I just wouldn't want to turn up. I'd just be like, "I'm sorry, I can't." Whereas now, as soon as someone's late, same thing. No stress, mate. Take time, put your boots on, do what you need to do, warm up, and then exactly that. Is everything all right? Like, is there anything that we can do to help? That, I feel like that's such a more valuable approach to buying in long term than just slap on the wrist. And
It's
yeah, that just makes so much sense to
funny
me.
you say that as well, because some people will listen to this and be like, this sounds too airy fairy. Like, if
Yeah,
somebody's late, they need to be reprimanded. And they do. So, like, so so there's a combination of both here, right? When we started men's, I went to play State Cup in Australia for Roosters, right? And when I came back, one of the first things we did was implement some culture codes in the Irish men's setup. Now, I'm not going to share all of these culture codes because they're private to us and they were effective and everything. But one thing I will share, and I do it in work here. I'm also doing a bit of teaching. I teach business in the morning for a couple of hours sometimes, and it's something the class have to do. It's something people do here at work, and it's something that we introduce at Men's Open. And you probably know this already, but when somebody arrives, the next person that arrives has to go to the person that's arrived already. They have to, like, acknowledge them, shake hands or high five them. What's up? How are you? Quick greeting, right? The next person that arrives then has to go to the two people that are there already and do the same thing, and on and on and on. Now, suddenly you're 20 deep, right? And someone is late. What do they have to do? Well, they have to go around to 20 people and they have to shake hands. They have to say, "How are you? How was your weekend? What's up?" etc. And of course, there's always a bit of ribbing for that guy who's going around the circle to 20 people. But what does it do? What's the reason? The reason is you can join a team, train for 6 months, and at the end of that 6 months, have little to no interaction with a teammate. This culture code forces people to get to know one another, to say hello to one another, to ask about what they're doing outside of training or outside of work. And it's the smallest thing, but it's, for me, it's like the glue. So I'm sure you've heard that one before, right?
I've not actually. I always make an effort, like with any team member part. As soon as someone arrives, I'll go say hello and just check in. But I'd not heard of that 1 to 2 to 3 like that. I like that though. I might definitely going to stay
Yeah,
with that.
yeah.
They're just
It's
it's so important.
it's a key one. And there's a book called David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell, and I think it's that book, or maybe it's the Sport Gene, but it's one of them. And they did a study. So in basketball, you'll probably notice this: basketball players will high five each other all the time. As they run onto the court, high five. Run off the court as you've been substitute, high five everybody. Take a shot, high five. Miss a free throw, high five, and so on and so forth and so on. And they've done studies on it that the teams that have these little hand slaps and these interactions regularly and consistently perform far better than the people that don't, because it builds a subconscious bond between your teammates. And like, there's a very famous saying that is, rules without relationships lead to rebellion. So if I walk into a group of people that I've never met before and I say, right, you're not allowed to wear green, you have to be here at 4 p.m., you can only drink water and you have to drink it with your left hand. They're going to be like, what's,
What the hell?
who's this guy? Who's this guy?
Yeah.
We need to do this stuff, right? Now, that could be a coach, could be a teacher, could be a boss. But if I build a relationship with somebody over time, away from work or away from training or whatever it is, and I say, listen, I think we should do this, the amount of times those people will follow in because they respect and know you and they have an existing bond and relationship with you is like 99 times out of 100. But the other way around, it's zero. So to go back to what you said about like if somebody's late, you can't control what anybody else does. You can't control what your staff members do. You can't control what your teammates do. Nobody. The moment you accept that and just give it up and focus on what you do and have more like-minded people around you who subscribe to the same culture, you'll never have to worry about anyone being late ever again, because they won't want to feel out of place in whatever setup
Yeah.
they're in by being late. You know, so
Massively.
you look at it from, you create the team and you create a culture. And that, by the way, a lot of work goes into creating culture. Like the men's setup, the culture codes I've been talking about, we had like endless Zoom calls, meetings, discussions. What do you think about this as a culture code? What do you think about this as a culture code? And it has to be like an open forum where everybody buys in. It can't be somebody walking in and going, right. And I'm sure Eddie Jones did this as well. He didn't walk in and say, right, tomorrow we're going to do this, 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 or from now on we're doing this. It's not. It's a discussion where we all say, what do we want to do? How do we want to do it? And what things are going to help us make the boat go faster, right?
100%. And again, I've gone back and forth around talking it and living it, because I've also, like, we've spoken about it in like the England men's for like a huge amount of time, and there's different iterations and there's nuances and there's different, characters that come in and drive it. But fundamentally, my belief is you've got to live that like to the nth degree yourself, but bring people on a journey, because you can't. I also feel like some people just go, I'm just going to do this so far down the line and I'm going to be so good, and almost kind of ask like, well, why are you not doing it? Instead of, like you said earlier, you can keep someone accountable, but you do it with an arm around the shoulder and you go, hey, like, as long as you've been part of the process and you buy into it, then I'll keep you accountable. Like I want you to keep me accountable. I don't want my perception of dropping standards to be going through the team. So if you see that in me, please tell me. I want to know that. If I'm coaching, if I'm a player, if I'm stuck, whatever it might be, but I'm going to do the same to you. And it's got to be collaborative. But that is sport, which is business. It's good people buying in. And you're right. No one wants to have those conversations. Like you can have them, and you do have them, but trying to keep people on, I say in line, but trying to keep people kind of like involved in the vision it's tiresome. It's hard work. You'd rather focus on,
It is.
well, actually, let's.
It needs to become autonomous. So like for me, it was hard work in the beginning, but then it runs itself. And the same with this restaurant. Like people say to me, who's the most important person in your business? And the cliched answer is, oh, the customer. The customer is king. Yeah, but not for me. The most important person for me in my business is my staff. They're the most important thing in my business. They have all the touch points with the customer. They're the ones that are
Yeah,
preparing the food. They're the ones that are doing all the things that need to be done well in order for my business to be successful. Yes, I need to think about the customer, 100%. But I need to make sure that the guys on the front line for me are happy, are well looked after, are enjoying their work, are motivated, know what they're doing, share my vision. Like all of my time is in my employees. All of my
yeah.
time running a touch team or whatever is the players.
Yes, absolutely. And also that's how you're reviewed externally, because a competitor now friend, you go, they're close, they run hard, they work hard, and they respect you off the pitch. You go, amazing, like love that. Absolutely love that. I've played against teams that run hard and they don't respect you off the pitch. And actually I go, not that interested, which is fine. Will Sericod always used to say, he always used to go back to, I can't remember who said it. It was something about like Sam Burgess being the speckly eyed man, like the hardest competitor on the pitch, but the nicest guy off the pitch. Has got to always go say hello to the kids, got to sign autographs, have photos. If with that profile, I'm not saying we do that, but that whole process of within the confines of the pitch, you are absolutely like being the best teammate that you can and a fierce competitor. But as soon as the whistle goes and you're off the pitch, you've got time for everyone, you respect everyone. And there's so many parallels to draw in business in that.
When you say Will Serico, because this is like I remember in the autumn internationals, so before every game, because we're super intense, there has to be like this conversation of like, stay calm, guys. Don't let like keep the intensity here, but don't let it go to there where you're not in control and all of that. But when we played you guys in autumn, the directive was lose control, go no, like go whatever you can do to even the odds, right? Like think of it like a boxing match or whatever. Drive them crazy. And I remember the ball was coming down the sideline, and I booted the ball. You were trying to take a penalty or something. Anyway, I booted the ball out over the sideline to try and waste time. And Will grabbed me like this, like this.
Yeah.
I just do you remember this? And I just went. I celebrated because I was like, I have made Will Sergol the most calm, cool, collected individual. Always just plays steady, plays consistent, plays well, and I've made him lose his cool. And I was like, that is like we lost the game, but I was like, I said to the guys after, I was like, we can get them to the place they don't want to be in. We can make them go there. Now I think over the years you guys kind of knew what we were trying to do, and you prepared better for them.
Figured it out.
Huh?
I was going to say, you always go, right, well, that's what they're trying to do. So we've got to go the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so fun.
Remember
Such a
before
game.
the European final in Nottingham, we won the toss. We made you like move your table and stuff. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Like you
I
guys would
do.
set up beside your fans, and then we won the thing, and we made you like we said, yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta take that box. You gotta lift up because we're always. I shouldn't be telling you all this, but we're always trying to take you guys out of the zone you want to be in. So like Dom, I'm talking to you on the pitch. I'm shouting at you. I'm telling you where you made a mistake. We're celebrating in your faces after we score. This is all calculated.
Yeah.
You're probably looking at it going, they're losing their like it's in the heat of the moment. It's not. It's you know.
Also, I love this because if you're in control of that, what a tactical. And this is, I don't know, I find it's a really close line between some people and like the huge variance in this, right? Some people like just play the game, focus, don't engage. But actually, if you can throw people off their game while you're staying in control, it's a huge performance advantage because now all of a sudden the opposition aren't thinking about the game, they're thinking about you. And it's such a subtle and fine line because I've had some teammates you go, just not going to engage, and others that go, well, we need to do this. So actually, at training to each other, we're trying to like rattle each other up, but without telling your teammates you're doing it. So they're like, what the hell are you doing? You're like, well, if that's how you respond to me, and it's, I don't know. There was a good film that Adam Sandler was in. I can't remember what it's called now. Basketball one. He goes and drafts Spanish guy. Do you know? Is it Hustle? I can't remember what it's called.
Just get him to the NBA. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like, there's a scene in that where as he's shooting, he's just like absolutely ripping into like his mum and his daughter, and the guy's like, "What the hell?" And there's a big thing around the game going, "Mate, when you're playing in the NBA, they're just going to be in your ear the entire time, just going, trying to make you lose your cool, lose focus." And yeah, it's a skill, isn't it, to focus on it? And you're right, take people out of the comfort zone.
I've always tried to rattle you, and I found you the hardest person to rattle. I do remember one time I got to you because it was Galaxy versus Scorps in that final of the NTS, and
Yes,
you guys had. Do you know what I'm going to say? You guys had a tap off, and you had a dive at the line, and you didn't score. And I just turned around to the ref and said, "That's fourth. That's fourth." And he no, sorry, what was I said it was fifth? I said it was fifth. I said that's fifth, sir.
yeah,
Fifth. That do you not remember what I'm talking about? I stole it,
I do.
and you were like, "No, that's fourth. That's fourth. We have one more strike." And I was like, "Fifth, fifth, fifth." And you were like blowing up, and I thought to myself, first time Dom Trip has ever blown up, potentially last. I'm delighted I got him there eventually. You know.
I'm still slightly bitter about that because we definitely had another strike and we
Remember,
lost.
do you?
I do. Because obviously at that time there was so much emphasis tactically on striking on third, so you get two cracks, and that was like our entire focus. And in a moment, it kind of kills me when refs get the touch count wrong. I mean, I've refed and got it wrong. It's genuinely quite a hard thing to do when there's so much. But I remember in a really tense moment when you're down and you're like, oh, I've worked so hard to get two strikes and dial up my chances, and now it's just taken away from me.
And you're not that type of player. Like I would do something like that. I would tell the ref it's fifth when I know well it's fourth. You know, because I'm always looking for an edge. And probably like you could label criticism at me that what I said about like trying to wind other players up and all that. People would look at me, especially my own teammates, and they would say I'm not in control. And there has been times where I've lost control by trying to do that. You know, so it is a double-edged sword, that whole mentality. I'm not sure how we got on to talking that because we were talking about business.
Oh no. Mate, just going into your competitive restaurant going, well, you've definitely got, closing times in an hour. Got to shut your tails. Oh, mate. This has been this genuine has been so much fun and really insightful because, as you were just saying, lots of stuff still to talk about. Really want to dive into just general business. It said like Island Touch situation, where the opportunities are to play, where the challenges are, because I think that's probably a good conversation to have. But if we rip into the last two segments, because there's one question as a restaurant owner, like there's one around food, which I'm very keen to hear what your thoughts are. But anyway, so the penultimate one section is just 6 quick fire questions to get to know you a little bit better. So first question, what's your favourite sport outside of touch?
Play or watch?
Ooh, do both.
All right, to play, I'm playing loads of basketball at the moment. So I love playing basketball. Sport to watch, I'm a huge Liverpool fan and I'm glued to every minute of the Premier League this year and to Arne Slot's tactics and
Love it.
strategy and love the breakdowns and all that. So play basketball, watch Premier League football.
Premier League. Nice. What's your pump up tune at the moment?
Ha! Kendrick's Super Bowl performance was in my AirPods when I was warming up for my game last Tuesday, and it worked a treat. So that was a good one.
Nice. What's your favourite way to unwind after a day of competition?
Haven't drank in about a year and a half, but it used to be like getting on the beers with the lads. I used to love that. Um, Probably just a TV show. It's just like just
Feet up.
if I'm not with the lads, then feet up. Yeah, I'm watching this new show called The Agency with Michael Fassbender. I don't know if you've seen it. Richard Gere. It's 10 out of 10.
Nice. I like it. This is the one I'm really excited about. As a restaurant owner, what's your death row meal? 3 courses.
Oh, 3 courses. Okay, I'll start with I'll start with these lobster roll things I had in Portugal. The lobsters were super fresh. It was like a little cannelloni thing filled with cream cheese, lobster on top, um, and a little bit of, I think it was salsa verde or something. It was banging. Main course is my mom's roast stuffed chicken. Dessert, not really a dessert guy, but I'll go with. I had that Dubai chocolate yesterday actually, and I don't even like chocolate.
Mind blown.
Yeah, have you had it?
No.
It's it's worth getting. It was amazing. So that's what I'll go with.
I like it. I like it. If it's any consolation, your pancakes at the Lucky Tortoise would absolutely be up there for me.
Great,
Some of the nicest
great.
things I've ever had.
I'll send you over some.
Yeah, please do. If not, I'll come get them myself. Love
Maybe I
them.
need to open Lucky Tortoise London.
Oh, that's a conversation that I'd love to have. Yeah, I will. Yeah, just stay on the call afterwards. Talk business. Last 2 of the quick fires. What's top of your bucket list at the moment?
Bucket list. I don't know why, but I want to go to South Africa soon. Yeah, I want to go to South Africa
Cool.
or Japan. Those two
Or
things
Japan.
on my bucket list. Well,
Love it.
that's from a leisure perspective. From a business perspective, I want to open 2 or 3 more businesses quite soon.
Cool. Watch this space. Well, yeah, when they come,
Like
we'll promote the hell out of them.
by the time it was released.
Yeah. Love it. Last quick fire. What's the best event you've ever been to?
Event.
Yeah. So music event, sports event, gathering of people, playing in, watching.
Like at the time, I was super impressed with Stay Cup because it just felt like Glastonbury for touch. It was just at every pitch there was something happening. It was super enjoyable. There is something else on my tip of my tongue that I can't remember. I'm sure I remember after the call it event. We'll go with State Cup 2019 pre-COVID in Sydney or in Fort Mac. Amazing.
In Port New South Wales. Nice. Brilliant. Good event. And then the last section we're going to do, which is my favourite bit, which is your starting 6, but not for playing touch. So it's always got a bit of a twist. So, for example, I did one with Gabe, who's a lawyer, and I said, who's your starting 6 for winning a case in the courtroom? And the rules are you've got to have played with them at some point. So it's got to be teammates.
Yeah.
And for you, John, I want to know who your starting 6 is for starting a restaurant. So you're recruiting 6 people for the Lucky Tortoise. You're CEO. You're in charge. 6 people beneath you, and you have to have played with them.
Okay.
Who would you employ?
All right. We'll go front of house, Mark Phelan.
Yeah,
Gifted gab. Very good with people. People like him, gravitate towards him. In the kitchen porter, Stevie Troy. Absolute grinder. Will never complain and just get everything done 24/7 and good crack to be fair.
yeah.
I gotta probably put Ryan Root Singh on the floor. He'll bring in all the ladies. generate a bit of turnover for me there, sell some cocktails. Uh, chef. Chef maybe Rachel Spear. No, Chef Ellie Boyce. Ellie Boyce. That's actually Mark Field's
Okay.
girlfriend in Australia. Played with her many times, and it looks like she's cooking up a storm. She's got her own little influencer page going in Sydney at the minute. Looks good. Where are we on? That's three. That's four. So two more. I need someone. I'll get Maddie Watt slinging pints.
Oh, what a outside pick, but such a pick.
Him and Rue behind the bar.
Oh, okay. I like that.
They
Nice as a double act.
double
Yeah.
act slinging pints. They'll do the business for sure.
They might drink you out of business, but there will be a lot of people there.
You have to pay them in pints, otherwise they'll be broke.
Nice. Philo at front of house, Stephen Troy as your porter, Ryan on the floor, bringing in the customers, Ellie's in the kitchen, Maddie Watt and Rue behind the bar.
Done.
What a six! If you did that in London, I would probably just turn up every night.
We'll do serious business.
Yeah, mate, huge. Well, genuinely, I can't thank you enough. I would be keen to get in some more time to talk through, like I said, grassroots, Island Touch, more about business, etc. in the next few weeks. But really, really appreciate your time coming on, speaking so openly. And like I said, fierce competitor turned into a friend, and really value that in the last few years as well. So, mate, love it. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thanks, Tommy.
Class. Right, for anyone else, see you soon. See you next week.
Okay.